talk a bit about summer tournaments, return to play, training, a little bit about, what you'll see whenever we do get to phase 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 16 of the Jimmy and Kyle Show. Looking very thin and fit today is Jimmy McAllister. How are you?
I don't know about fit, but I'm real excited. I know later in the show we'll talk about Ethan Double-Air making his first appearance from the Sounders, and I got up this morning and he sent me the first pair of boots he ever wore in a league game. I have it right here. That's the pair of boots he wore this weekend in the game, and it doesn't really fit the Sounders color. Well, he's young, so he's got small feet. So I will cherish this the rest of my life. One of our players playing for the Sounders. So I felt real thrilled.
Joining us also is Rich Reese, girls ECNL director and girls coaching director. How are you, Rich?
I'm good. I can't understand why it's still the Kyle and Jimmy show. I've been on so much. I'm waiting for my name to be put on here.
We might replace Jimmy with you.
Yeah.
There's only so much money to go around, Rich. You got to keep the budget down.
I'll dig that keep the budget they gave me and give it to you.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about.
This is a guy I was thinking about bringing on. Yeah, we were thinking about bringing somebody on. If you guys remember JP Patches, this is a famous clown from West Seattle, to bring somebody on like that,
So today we're going to talk a bit about summer tournaments, return to play, training, a little bit about, what you'll see whenever we do get to phase 3 and all that. So, Rich, I want to start with you. What do we know right now about summer tournament season?
It's a little bit of, week by week. Our next event obviously would have been the Reed App, which has been cancelled. So that leads us into the Rainier event, August 21st, in theory being our, next upcoming event if we can get released into phase 3. Following that would be the other Washington Premier event, the River Jam. And then the next one is Labor Day weekend, I believe it is, with the Pro Alliance and the Snohomish Bigfoot. Obviously, everything that we do in foreseeable future is going to be very locally based because we certainly don't want to be traveling. Even when we do return to play, it'll be, statewide. But, that's kind of where we are. I think everybody is looking forward to playing, but at the same time, working within the parameters and the guidelines that were given from the powers of be.
Yeah, and everything's obviously contingent upon us actually getting into phase 3, exactly. Which with the governor's kind of memo, if you will, on Tuesday said that we are indefinitely in phase 2. But from what I've heard, they're going to review all of this on August 10th. So basically 2 weeks from when they made that announcement, see how the 2-week trend is going there. Yeah.
So I think all of us in the soccer world have to be glass half full guys. You look at the positive. We, for the first time ever in our 10-year history, we never lost a game at the Surf Cup this year because we couldn't go. But we never lost a game, so that was pretty good. I missed those early morning breezes, but what do you do? Hopefully we'll be able to get some tournaments in for the kids to get playing, but like anything right now, there's no guarantees, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so, on the return to play topic, you guys, myself, we've all been out at trainings, conducted trainings. How do we think it's going right now?
Yeah,
my perspective. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead.
From my perspective, the club did a great job with the video part of our segment. It's very, very difficult to run video trainings and content, but the guys did great. Fitness trainings, I got calls from some parents that took part of the fitness trainings and they've never been so tired in their life. So kudos to you guys for the video stuff. Obviously, the spaced out training session, groups of 5, isn't playing soccer, but it's out on the field. The kids are getting a run in. The kids are tired after the training and getting a lot of ball work. it's not the day-to-day competition you'd like to see in terms of tackling and running, but
Sure.
it's the best thing we have right now. And again, kudos to Rich, yourself, the Churskys of the world, and all the coaches for running great sessions and keeping everybody socially distanced. I get to see a lot of the parks in Seattle. I get to see multi-sports, obviously, lacrosse, baseball, everything, volleyball down at Alki Beach. And I'd have to say, not to blow our own horn, but I think we've been the most organized and most prepared for this situation. And I think it's gone very well.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. We have been unbelievably organized. Rich, I got this question today from somebody, and I know what my answer is, but what have you seen, I guess, over the past month when you see these kids walk onto a field? What's one of the first things you see?
Smiles.
Yeah.
I think they're all, they're all happy to get out of the car. You got to stick some reminders out there about social distancing, because I think they're all very happy to see each other. But that early, there's a prep in their step. I haven't had anybody tell me, can I miss tomorrow, or I'm fatigued, or I'm
right.
This is hard work. Instead it's just buzzing. And it's obviously I have a lot of the older ones with me a lot of the time, and it's tough at the end of their 40-50 minute session when they see another group coming up there. They're begging to jump into that group too. And I'm like, I was like, we can't. I was like, but it's good. It's just there's a lot of positivity. And when we do our Zoom meetings on Monday, to sort of review the past week and then look at the week ahead, they're getting better too. I know we're not playing, and I know there's not contact in it, but we've worked all this week on just basically fullback pattern, which has got from a center back to a center mid to a fullback, how we want to progress. And next week we'll work on sort of the winger aspect of it, and you can do that in the small functional groups, and then we'll watch the video on it, and it's really sinking in. So for me, obviously we'd prefer to be bigger field and not as much restrictions, but it's actually been a period of possibly the most teaching I've had, breaking details down.
Yeah, and I think, especially for the younger ones, I mean, I've got a U12 and a U13 team, and even younger than that, the kids, normally you would spend 10, 15 minutes doing your technical training at the beginning of a session. You're getting 45, 50 minutes of pure technical work right now, and a bit of fitness. And you can see, at first it was shaking off the rust, right? Now you can see them, and you can hone those skills a little bit better. You can sharpen those tools that they have even more. And I think the technical footwork part of it is getting better. The ball striking part of it's getting better. I know for me, what I've been doing is running circuits with, and a lot of our teams running circuits with, where you have one where's ball striking, you have a passing pattern, first touch, you've got individual footwork stuff, and then finishing. And, those are the, obviously 4 huge areas of the technical part of the game. And the kids are really able to focus on that, and the repetition of it as well is helping out, because we live in a day and age where these kids can't just go to a park all the time and do things on their own. And so whereas when we were kids, we used to do that, and that's how we hone those parts of our game, especially the ball striking part of it. And so now we're able to work with those kids over a period of time, 3 times a week, 45 minutes on average a session, on just those technical aspects. So for me, I think those parts of their game are improving as well, for sure. Jimmy, what have you seen?
To get into a philosophical talk about soccer, I think ball striking's always been an undervalued ability of a player. How
Absolutely.
to deliver a ball, to deliver it with, inside out spin, outside in spin, outside of the foot. Can you drive a ball and get it there quickly? When sometimes a guy or a girl is passing the ball, the way you pass the ball gives your teammate time and space. If you slop it out, roll it out to a winger, they're closed down immediately. If you ping it out, a good crisp ball, and it gets there early, it gets your players more options. And that's part of the when they say a great player makes other players better. They know how to deliver a ball, and they can deliver it on time, and they have the right thinking But besides just the right thinking, the physically being able to strike and ping a crisp ball is something that's way undervalued. I think that, I was just talking to Dave Malik today of soccer.com. He has a young girl that's quite a good player, plays in North Carolina. And it's just the kids getting out right now as well. They've been stuck for 3-4 months at home, socially distanced, and just to be able to get out and run around, and pure health reasons to get out and get some things going and get a sweat on and be physical, I think is huge. Aspects, if I'm concerned about us going back to phase 1 and shelter in place and what that does to the kids. For somebody like me, I can deal with it. For a kid in high school, I mean, I can't see it. I just, my dad died younger, and it was my mom and I when I was pretty much in high school, but I couldn't see myself, and I love my mom, but staying 24/7 hanging with my mom all day probably wouldn't work for her or me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's important that we offer that outlet,
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've heard from a lot of parents recently is there was a lot of fear that on Tuesday, the governor was going to roll us back into phase 1 or phase 0.15 or something like that. And all of a sudden soccer was going to get shut down. And they're looking at the school year as well being all online. And they're saying, well, my kid's not going to have any PE. They're not going to have any physical activity. We need this for our kids to get out of the house for the mental part, for the social part, and also to give them that physical outlet, because right now with schools going online, there's not going to be a physical outlet for them during the day.
Well, and that's always been the $1 million, $1 billion, $2 billion question for young people that are homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And I can see, I could look at it in every perspective, private school, public school, homeschool. But the thought of homeschooling was always the interaction with other children. When we say that we're a single child, it's important to have them interact with other kids to learn. I mean, your kids, they fight at home and they do what they need to do, and they've got, three siblings to play with. You have 4 kids. But when you're home alone, it's important to have that outside contact, and hopefully we can provide that. Now that schools, depending on what school district you're in, you're up in the air. Are you homeschooling? Do I need to quit my job and stay home to watch the kids? What you and your wife going to do in terms of watching the kids? They're in the Highline School District or whatever else. We're all panicking to what to do come September and what it's going to look like. And it's tough. And I think sometimes you need some way to have an outlet and get rid of some stress, because, if you told me you knew what was going to happen in a week, I'd tell you must have a crystal ball, because we just don't know. So I hope that people value, and I hope we can be a service to people that, I know we're not playing games right now, and we have to employ basically a full staff to have all the trainings, 2 to 3 trainings a week, but I hope we provide an invaluable service, and that's what we're in.
And Rich, I'm sure you've heard this in your talks with the parents and whatnot, but I think they do believe we offer this service to them, and it is an invaluable service to them.
Yeah, no, I spoke to many parents on different age groups, on different level teams, and the same thing has came back, of the kids are enjoying training, and they're appreciative of it being there for them. I think one important thing, that everybody's got to realize is, we're not pushing, to go to games. We're following the guidelines. We're not out there, stomping our feet saying, we got to move on. We have to move on. What we're doing is the most of what we can do within the parameters and the guidelines and the governance that we're given. And I think the main reason, why we're all out there and doing it is, one, obviously you wouldn't be in this profession if you didn't enjoy being with the kids, but a big bit right now is you actually see the benefits it's given the young people. I had 3 training sessions this morning, and, every kid was, just buzzing around, even when they got there at 8:45, this morning, they were alert and, excited for the rest of their day, which is important.
Yeah. And not just for the kids, but I think for the coaches as well. I mean, like you said, we do this for a living and because we love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where even this little bit of normalcy, even though it's basically a half training session, we're still planning for those sessions. We're still doing all those things in the background. It does give us that bit of normalcy and that glass half full, as Jimmy wanted to say, of getting back to normal sometime in the future. And that, it gives you hope. And when you have that, I mean, you're excited to show up to the field. You're excited to work with the kids. I mean, I know I like seeing the kids out there out the field, even though I can't interact in the same ways that we used to and quite correct in the same ways and work on the tactical things in a bigger picture. It's still something, and it's still building towards something. So for me, yeah, I really think that part goes not unappreciated, but undervalued maybe is the mental part of it. And the kids, like you said, it's showing up to the field with a smile on their face and being excited, even at a distance, seeing their friends. And because for some of these guys and a lot of them and girls, it's identity, and being able to be out there with the team is huge for them.
Yeah, I think one thing on top of that is, you can fill your whole week up with it too. There's, for example, with the girls, there's a fitness session on Monday, there's a fitness session on Tuesday, there's that team training, whether it's 2 or 3 days, and then a lot of people are still doing, that one Zoom session a week, to review or to do something a little different. I know Dan's doing a Zoom session today because he wants to go over tactical stuff that they've been technically working towards and training. Now he actually wants to show them sort of what the end result is once it's on the field, But for me, what's really been interesting is I actually feel as if I've got to know a lot of the kids maybe even better, because we've been in different Zoom sessions or these small groups where you can spend a little bit more individual time on them, rather than sort of painting the big picture of what's going on in the game aspect of training, and I've found that I've got more phone calls off players in the last 4 months than I probably have in the last 4 years for them just checking in, which has been great,
Jimmy, what are you back there signing on that shoe? You're on mute, bud.
I was just wanting to show you guys that Ethan actually did sign this shoe for me. Ethan. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew it was legitimate. Thanks, Ethan. It's really cool. The red doesn't go with the Rave green much, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. I feel flattered. It's unbelievable. It made my day when I saw this in the mail.
Yeah. So
I tell you what, ahead, great touches on the ball.
Yeah, he did. He did. And Hen Wallace sent me some stuff as well. I'm sure you guys got your stuff too. But Hen Wallace he just sent me cash. It was pretty cool when I opened up the envelope. It had like $8 in there. It was pretty cool.
All I got was a thank you card.
I got a walk.
Well, you know what? You just do a lot of work, but you don't get a lot of credit.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those that don't know, Henwala Bawana scored a goal, had an assist for the Sounders this past week in the MLS's back tournament. Ethan Double Air.
A whole bill full.
Oh,
see?
Look at that.
He sent me money. I have all my stuff the kids send me
that.
right here on my desk.
Ethan Double Air, former Seattle United player, 17 years old, made his first appearance this past week for the Seattle Sounders. And Reed Baker Whiting, 15 years old, played in the club since he was 9. He just signed with the Tacoma Defiance as a 15-year-old, which is pretty exciting for him.
I believe that's a full professional, and that's something. I think when we were younger, I don't know if that was available. I signed when I was 18, and it was a huge step up. I signed right out of high school. Signing at 15, boy, oh boy, that's something. If you can compete at the Defiance level at 15, that's really something. And I wish the young man all the best. And always been a great kid, always been a really good club kid. Wallace Lapsley was, I believe, in '98. our goalkeeper, he's playing as well. So it's just awesome to see.
I think he was
some of these
96.
kids. 96 was he? It's
96.
just awesome to see these kids go, a Lakeside player, to see these kids go play professionally. You remember Paulie Rothrock scored a goal in the national final last year for
really?
Georgetown Youth University. Yeah,
Oh,
they beat the Huskies, I think, in the round of, what was it, 8
the
or 4?
Elite Eight.
The Elite Eight. Yeah, they won that game.
Ugh.
But there's a lot of kids doing a lot of great things from the club, and it's really exciting to see. I think we've given a lot of kids to the Sounders that have signed their professional papers. So that's kind of awesome. It's kind of awesome to see those kids come through. The other thing is you see a guy like Rafi Cox, who was a star at the University of Washington. He's on our staff now. So he's done his professional gig, played with the Stars still, I think, but he's back giving back coaching. And, it's
Played
just
in
really
MLS
cool to see
for
that.
Real Salt Lake, I believe.
Yeah, MLS. Yeah, it's really cool to see
won
that.
an MLS championship.
Yeah, to see that cycle of players, go through the UW or where have you, Seattle U, go off, play professional, and come back and coach. It's a really cool thing. So, and I think we'll have
Jimmy,
more and more because we have some great young kids. There's no question.
So a little flashback moment. I remember when Reed was a U11 playing in the state final. We were on the sidelines.
And he did that flick over his head deal.
And he did a rainbow over the defender in a tied game with like 2 minutes left. I mean, his confidence on the ball and his creativity, has always been something to watch for. And
well,
that's
he
pretty
got
exciting.
A penalty kick, I believe, in that game, and everybody was worried he was going to go behind the back penalty kick, in the state final.
Yeah, so, a little Panenka down the middle.
It just goes to show you that sometimes having no fear is a great way to play. He was always really creative, and it came from himself because I think his mom and dad would be the first to attest that they're not your typical driven soccer parents where the dad played at the highest level in recreational ball and the mom was an Olympian and was a rowing champion, and he just came from parents that just kind of, I think, took him to training and gave him his room, and so creative, so free in his play. Usually, when you're playing in big games, you feel the pressure, and that's part of the reason why you want to play in big games, because you feel the pressure. But never seemed to bother Reed a lot, and the great ones seem to do that. Yeah,
he embraces that pressure.
They want to be on the stage, and the great ones want to take the pressure. And Paul Rothrock scoring in a national final. Ethan playing in a World Cup. U17 or U18 World Cup.
Playing in a full-fledged Sounders game at the age of 17. He's still in high school.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It really is. It's just a tribute to all the coaches we have. And, certain amount of these players are all, coached by the same players coming through. And there's some good coaches in our group. There's no question. And some of the young ladies as well. There's not that avenue for the young ladies to sign in high school, but some of our kids that are going to major colleges, Gonzaga, we've got Smith Hunter going to Harvard, I believe, in Division I. Unfortunately, they're not playing this year. They don't get the chance to sign their professional papers at 14, but they're playing in Youth World Cup teams. Yeah. They're doing all these things, and they will be in the women's professional league when they get out of college. But the girls' pathway is college right now, and Rich can speak to that more than I can. But the boys have a little bit different pathway. But nonetheless, the accomplishments are still mind-boggling for both sides, how well they're doing. Rich, do you want to talk about the pathway for the girls a little bit in terms of how they get there?
Yeah. I mean, the women's program is obviously still growing, and it's great that it's established itself, I think, for the longest run now, which is great moving forward. I think what you see the slightly different pathway on the men's side, because what are we are we 20, 25 years into the MLS now? I can't remember.
25th year, yeah. It's the 25th year.
25th year. So, with that, you've, the structure and the infrastructure is there. And now, thankfully, there's an element of where the money's there, so now these young men that, it's not a $33,000 contract like it was 10 years ago even. Now they can actually go in and foregone college can be a little bit more worthwhile financially for some. And in the women's game, the pro league, like I said, been doing very well. I actually just spoke to the Houston Dash coach yesterday. They just won the women's pro tournament, which is fantastic. And he was filming me on that. He said it was a great event. And he was sharing, how they build up their roster and so forth. And obviously it's all very heavy directly from the college game on the women's side. That is the pathway. That is
correct.
Still
bit
what
different
they
than the men.
predominantly draft from. And you've got, don't get me wrong, you have some really talented teenagers who have went in, straight from high school, senior, or as a freshman in college, but very few. And again, I think as the league continues to grow and money and sponsorship starts to come in there and longevity of the league, you may find younger, but it took an awful lot. It took a long time on the men's side before we hit the 17-year-olds going through and actually being successful. So it's exciting. It is exciting.
And you know what? Before you do that, I went in at 18 years old, and people ask me sometimes why I'm so immature. Well, I never really had a childhood because I went right from high school to playing in professional games and not being able to do some of the things that my buddies could do. I had games on the weekend. I was on the road a lot. I did have money for college. My mother and I negotiated a deal where I had money for college, but nobody told me you had to qualify. So that money kind of probably still sitting there. I better go back and look for it. But I signed a contract in 1976 for $800 a month. And I thought I was toying. So, times change, and it's the same thing. It's a sacrifice when you go at 15 or 17 years old straight to the pros. You have to grow up in a hurry. And I had some great teammates like Dave Gillett and Jimmy Gabriel and Pepe Fernandez and guys like that. That guy Tommy Jenkins I don't know about Tommy, but Tommy Jenkins and these guys brought me up. But in the end of the day, you miss out on a lot of things your buddies are doing in college. Mm-hmm. And you have to weigh all those things. And now the money's so much more in the game. It probably makes more sense financially to make that jump. But to make that jump, it's a tough jump, and it's not for everybody. I can guarantee. And you grow up real quick, and there's a lot of pressure on you as a kid. And I think that depending on who your coach is, and I think Smets is pretty good at it, and some of the other guys pretty good. But how much you expose those kids to failure early on, because there's going to be failure when you're playing against players that are better than you and more physical than you and more mature than you. And if you give them too big of a dose of failure, it really affects your career. So they got to bring these kids up, and they have to be careful with their ego and everything else, because you've gone from a situation of usually being the best player on the field to being the nobody on the field. And that's hard mentally to deal with sometimes. So it's very important that, and I think the Sounders and Smets and the guys they got there have a great group to deal with these kids and teach them the ropes and still protect them a bit till they're ready to go full time. There's a big difference between a freshman in your D1 program and a senior. Some freshmen come in and they're capable, but they have to learn the ropes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even in the college scenario.
Yeah. And that's the biggest bit, obviously the pro game is developed, and it's now got other layers in it, but for me, you still look at the majority, and I'm still a huge advocate of the pathway, being the right one for the right player at the right time. Ethan being 17, being talented, pro pathway, that's opened up for him. That's awesome. I'm sure he'd be super successful. But for others, you look at Handwalla. Handwalla came for 2 years. He needed that. He needed he needed the maturity. He needed to grow as a young man. To give him some grounding to go into the professional game, same as Christian Roldan came for a couple of years, Henry Wingo. But then you look at some of these guys who have went through and done their 4 years. Jordan Harvey, he's ranked 6th right now on appearances in the MLS, and he did his 4 years at UCLA. It kind of came in when he was a rookie and just chipped away at it. Now he's a 36, 37-year-old proven pro, so timing is the right time for each individual, and I still think going as a homegrown and going in as a college player, they both have the right paths, for that person,
It's just like coaching or anything else. As a player, you need to look at the organization you're going to.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's always the best for a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old to go to an average club and get thrown right in the starting lineup and get a big dose of reality right away. Whereas you can go to a club like the Seattle Sounders, that's an established champion that has the budget to bring in, more worldly players, and you can develop at your own rate as opposed to being thrown in deep end and drowning. Because I can tell you what, I played some games when I was 18, 19, and I felt like going back to the hotel room and shutting the door and never coming out because it's on TV and you're playing against a good player and they make you look silly, and you have to learn on the job. And sometimes that's very difficult for your ego. Like I said, most of the kids that get signed up or get taken to the pros are always been their best in their deal. Their youth team, their national team, they've always been one of the best. And they've always got that, oh, you're the best, you're this. And the players look up to you, go there, and it's just the opposite. You're on the bottom of the totem pole, man. That's a tough place to go. And when I came into the pros, I was probably 8 kids came in, and I was probably rated number 7. I played 14 years, and none of them ever played a pro game. You just never know. I got a break. I was lucky. Or I had a coach that liked what I did or whatever. Jimmy Gabriel, a coach of mine, was, advocated for me. And that takes to get in the national team. You need a Rich Reese at the University of Washington or Jamie calling the national team coach, say, you really need to look at this kid. This kid is worth it. You need people to promote your player. And same thing from youth to college. And sometimes those are tough, but I agree with you, Rich. It's right time, right place, and the right kid. Yep. And that could be a lot of different pathways, So.
Yep.
So looking forward here a little bit over the next, month, 2, goalkeepers, I've had a question about, where are they fitting into phase 2, phase 3, whatnot? What's in the pipeline right now, Rich?
Well, the intention was obviously to bring them back in phase 3, because I think we all thought we'd be hitting phase 3 by now, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, but obviously we haven't. So we'll bring the goalkeepers back in August. That schedule will go out, this towards the end of this week or this weekend. It'll be very technically based. I don't want the goalkeepers, and I don't think it's right yet to be, straight back into it and diving. They haven't done goalkeeper work for, X amount of months. So we'll come back, do a lot of handling, a lot of footwork. So we'll be very technically based rather than pounding on their hips and, go and jump straight into live shots. And we'll bring them through sort of over the next couple of weeks. And then from there, I think they'll be ready to immerse themselves straight back into team training and, jump into those stations where they're doing the shooting. But I do think we've got to respect the fact that they haven't worked. I know a lot of them have been doing it on their own, but still, seeing that amount of reps, it's important that we get their hands back. So that will be starting up in August.
I think they'll be excited for anything
for sure.
At this point to get into that goalkeeper training, the specific training for them. Yeah, absolutely. All the footwork training we do in a normal team training and whatnot is very valuable, the ball striking, whatnot, because they still have to use those skills.
Yeah. And
they're not getting to use their hands. Right?
Yeah. And that's been one of the biggest things. And, and I've spoke to a lot of the goalkeepers. They've actually really enjoyed this stage because, they've worked on their distribution, and I think a lot of the time us as coaches, we tend to, stick them in goal, where they should still be going through, our technical part of every training session. They should be a field player, at every age, because, they got to be able to deal with back passes, connect us to play. The goalkeeper on our 19 girls team is probably in the top half of the roster as field player, and we play through her for that, so it changes our comfort level as a team of how we can play because of her ability with her feet. So, it's important. And this has been good for that, but now I think it's time to obviously bring the handling aspect back into it and slowly work our way back through to, if we are playing at the end of August or we're playing in September, that, that they've built up to that. Right.
And I know Dr. Dresner and I are working right now on the phase 3 protocols for not just training, but what does a game look like? 2 do you or do you not have spectators at the game because of the limitations that are put on? And it may come to the governor's office saying, yeah, games are allowed, but spectators are not allowed. That may be out of our control anyway, but to prepare for either scenario, we're putting together the documents that will, narrow down the scope of phase 3 return to play. We'll go old school with the benches where one team sits on one side of the field, the other team sits on the other side of the field. Obviously handshakes, fist bumps, all that stuff's out the window.
Yeah.
But
so Kyle, if common sense was common, everybody'd have it.
Sure.
But I think one of the big things in youth soccer and youth sports is the parents' involvement.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any way to let common sense prevail and stay masked and socially distanced away from the field, I think it's important that the parents at some level are involved, because it's a whole family deal when a kid plays a sport for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole, there was nothing more than I enjoyed watching my kids play soccer. So if they can say socially distanced, and it's a place that you can do that and limit the number just to parents, I would hope that would be into consideration. I don't make the rules, and we live by them, and I don't know the governor from anybody, but
Sure.
in the end of the day, I think that it's a whole family deal. And I think that this is a club, and we're all in this together, the parents, the coaches, the players, the board members, and everybody's done a great job. For example, if you go to A and B and Shoreline, there's that bulkhead there that's 30 yards away from the field. The parents can say socially distanced. Obviously, there's nowhere near the kids. At Magnuson, there's a fence there keeping people back, So I just hope that maybe something can be worked out, because I think it's a whole family affair when you play, And hopefully we can say socially distance, wear masks, and do the right things to really get a grip on this virus,
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. I mean, it definitely, I'd like to watch my kid play when they play, of course. And we're preparing for kind of both scenarios, right? The scenario where there are limited spectators allowed, how do you keep them socially distanced? And the scenario where the government does say you can play games, but there are going to be no spectators. And one thing, and we've got some extremely talented parents in this club, like Santi, who records and edits this show for us. Live streaming is something that we're looking into, if parents are not allowed to be at the games, and setting up teams with live streaming. That way there's still an ability to watch the game. They're not completely disconnected.
I'm not putting Santi into this situation, but some cameramen live stream their own kid. So if your husband's not doing the live streaming, all you see is that kid the whole game. But I know Santi and some of the guys now are so sophisticated that it's not like that at all. But, maybe could we negotiate for one parent per kid? And can you do something like that? And ask if they're socially distanced and wear 2 masks, and they come out and watch their kid play. Because I know that the whole youth soccer thing for me, being a player and then being a parent, we became friends with a lot of the parents on the team. You spend so much time together in the games and everything else, they become little communities, and you want to be at the game to BS with your friends. I mean, one team, I can't remember what it was, they always came dressed up as bunnies, and they wore costumes to every game. I don't know why they did that, but they seemed to have a good time. So it's important that the parents have a good time as well, not just the kids,
That's right. I remember that. I think there was a chicken in there.
Yeah, there was a chicken, there was a bunny. They had all sorts of stuff. I'm not so sure they were drinking Gatorade, but I don't know what they were doing, but they seemed to be having a good time on the sidelines of every game,
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely
It makes
were.
it a lot easier for me when the parents are happy.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. For sure.
It's kind of like being married. It makes it a lot easier for me when my wife's happy. Trust me.
Yeah.
40 years of it. Trust me. I know. So.
Yeah. And obviously in phase 3, we're allowed to have more players on a field. You'll get into actual team training at that point, and you'll have the ability to do some tactical stuff, which will be huge for coaches. It opens up so much more, that's team training like we know it. The key will be just fine-tuning some of the protocols that we have for entry, exit. Now that there's more players on a field, how do we release players from the trainings and whatnot? But we're looking forward. We're planning. we're doing everything we can. That way, when we get the word, we're ready to go. And, whenever the governor's office releases new orders or anything like that, I can tell you Dresner and I are on email. We're on the phone with John Snyder, who's special advisor to Governor Inslee. And he is basically responsible for outdoor recreational sports and recreational sports as a whole. So we've got a great, conduit through him to get answers when we need them, and be able to influence a little bit as well what goes on in the state.
That's good.
Well, I've been absolutely impressed with the parents, with the procedures, with the people being socially distanced, the kids coming in off a text, all the kids having masks on, the ingress, the egress.
Yeah,
I've been impressed at the trainings I've been at. The parents, the kids, everybody's done a good job. The kids especially, because it's hard, because they want to wrestle and mess about and get in their little groups and talk whatever they talk.
yeah.
They've been very, very disciplined, and I'm very impressed. And I'd like to thank all the parents for obviously talking to your kids and making sure they're aware that this is important, that we have to do these things to keep going. So it's been a real community effort. You coaches have done a great job. So I'm real impressed with the whole thing.
Yeah, I know one of the big worries was with the little ones, the 6-year-olds, how they were going to handle it. But I'll tell you what, I've been out there because my daughter's playing on the team, and they've been great about it. I was worried because she is a social butterfly, and I was worried she's going to just, unwittingly run up to another kid, introduce herself, say hi, try to get a play date. And she has stayed in her grid, and she has exited the field like she should, entered the field like she should. And the coaches have done a great job with making sure that, especially with those little kids that could get a little squirrely, getting them to understand the rules and do what they're supposed to do. And it's been great.
I can't believe little Max Hunter's gone 4 weeks without a slide tackle, because he's been slide tackling me since he's been 1 year old.
He's broadening his game.
I don't know, but he loves a slide tackle, and he always yells slide tackle and come flying at me when I just be out to watch the game. So if he can stay within his grid, I do too. If little Max can stay within his grid, we're okay.
Yeah. Yes. All right, guys, you got any closing thoughts for today?
No. I mean, I know we talked about, the summer tournaments and stuff, and obviously I think it's worth just mentioning about the girls' high school moving to the fall. Moving from the fall to the spring period. The school association sent out that notice that they'll be moving to a March 1st to May 2nd on the girls' side, tentatively, but it'll certainly not be in the fall. So with that, yourself has worked with the RCL and the state office to look at a September 12th start date, possibly. I believe that's right for the state. And then we've worked with the ECNL on the girls' side to build a mock schedule for a September 12th start, where we would play all of our in-state rivals, take the travel away, obviously. And then there's also sort of a backup plan to that on a first weekend in October start date. If it's not sort of phase 3 by September 12th. So I think that's important just to note that, on the girls' high school side of things, that there is active plans in place for a club fall season to take place. So there's as least amount of conflict come March, April with the high school season.
Kind of the plan too would be to move their state cup to the winter time, the January, February time. That way they get it in before, almost like what a boys' high school season has been, and get it in before the high school season starts. That way they're getting their full club year and their full high school year without any conflicts.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it's contingent on getting out there, but I do think it's good for everybody to know that those conversations have been had and schedules are there, and all the other clubs in the state are ready to go too with us and make sure that the girls have a full season if possible. The ECNL obviously not do state cup per se, in the winter. They'll still have games in the winter, but they're actually going to follow on and finish their season through May and June too. So they'll sort of take a high school gap. And with that, just today, we actually changed the girls' showcases for our club because we would have been going to Phoenix in April, which obviously would clash right in the middle of the new high school season. So we've actually moved there. We're now doing an event in May afterwards. So that's good. So.
Oh.
And like
Jimmy,
we've always said that high school is important for that social aspect. Again, being somebody in your school, it's unfortunate, but some of the kids that played in the DA could win a national championship on Saturday or Sunday and come back to school on Monday and nobody know the difference. Right. You play high school soccer and you score a hat trick against Mukilteo and you get your name in every paper in Seattle area. Yeah. And there's something to be said to being successful and getting a bit of credit or getting a kudos for something you've worked at and trained on for a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, part of being a good athlete, part of being good at anything is having confidence. And the more things that are said to you and written about you and that you're doing well, the easier it is to be confident in what you're doing. And that whole part when you're playing for a national championship in Tulsa, Oklahoma, none of your friends or peers or anybody know about it except your mom and dad. You win a high school state championship and there's parades down, down the boulevard to celebrate the championship. So I think all those things are important. Yeah. And the development of a player and the development of loving the game. It's important to have time when you're playing with your friends, and the bus rides and all that kind of stuff are important.
And when I was in high school, they would announce on the PA to the whole school how the sports did the night before.
Absolutely. And who scored
they'd get
the
on
goals
there
or
and
scored the touchdowns. And
exactly. And they'd get on there. Kyle Roediger scored 2 goals, had 7 assists. And no matter, I took 30 shots and we played some country bumpkin school in the middle of Texas that barely had a program. But,
how many goals did you say you scored?
I scored 2 and I had 7 assists. We won 13-0. We played Stephenville High School, which they're a football powerhouse, but not so much on the soccer.
The other team's war were supposed to be over their nose and mouth, not their eyes.
Exactly. But, I remember those things from high school, right? I don't necessarily remember a lot of the club stuff from high school. I remember high school soccer. I remember high school sports. And so, it is important. It is good that we've got an adjustment in there for how these high school seasons have had to adjust because of everything.
Well, you look at an incoming freshman young lady, and Rich, I know that the season has changed, but if they're good enough, they go to varsity as a freshman right when they walk in the doors of the school. Mm-hmm. And they announce the team in an assembly or whatever else, and automatically you become, look at that soccer, she's on the varsity team or whatever. Yeah. That gives immediate credibility to some of these kids, and some kids aren't the most outgoing, and it's tough. So right away when you join a team, at least 16 to 18 other young ladies that play on the team and have something in common. And sometimes when you make the transition from a smaller school to a bigger school, it's tough. You know that from kids coming to University of Washington. Yeah. You go to University of Washington, it's a big place. You can get lost in a hurry. And you can lose your identity really quickly. So all these things matter when you look at the development of an athlete,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree.
I never had 7 assists in any game, but then again, I don't know who you were playing, Kyle.
Well, but, again, this was a country school out in the middle of nowhere in Texas. All right.
Okay.
Those stats weren't there all the time.
I'll give you credit for that then. Okay.
Any last words of wisdom there, Jimmy?
Well, I just think we need to keep going and we will keep trying to communicate with the parents and, hopefully we move up a stage rather than move down a phase. And hopefully at some point we will be playing. That's all we can do. Keep training till that point. But hopefully we're delivering something of value to the families that we serve. Hopefully, and even though we're restricted, hopefully it makes sense to keep coming out and staying diligent till we can get back to some, I've heard this 1,000 times, but some sort of normal. And I don't know what that is, but we'll be at the forefront of trying to create the best we can.
You can bet that. Yep. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
See you guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you
Thanks,
too.
Cole. Appreciate it.